Hello class, welcome to your second video on adding and subtracting fractions. Again, I created a template here, or you can access the template online as well. So we're going to go ahead and start with the process of what happens when we add and subtract fractions that have like denominators. So again, we're going to start with our steps and then look at some examples. So step 1, we are going to keep the denominators the same. Okay, keep the denominators the same, and then we are going to add or subtract the numerators. And then step 3, simplify if necessary. Alright, so just a quick review. The numerator is that number on top, and I'm just going to abbreviate. The denominator is the number bottom, think about down. Alright, so it says keep the denominators the same, and in order to add and subtract fractions we have to have like denominators. So it's just in a moment we're going to talk about what we do when those are different, but because they are the same we are just going to keep those the same. So automatically we know our denominator is 7. Then to get the numerator we are going to add or subtract the numerators. Here's an addition sign, so we know we are going to be adding 3 plus 7. So 3 plus 7 is 10/8. And then I want to simplify, also known as reducing this fraction. So what number goes into both 10 and 8? Well, that's 2. So divide the numerator and denominator by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 5/4, that's your final answer. You can also write that as 1 and 1/4 if you would like. Alright, the next one, again we are going to keep the denominators the same, so that's still going to be 12. Add or subtract the numerators. This time we're going to be subtracting, so 11 minus 5, 6/12. Make sure I reduce. 6 goes into the numerator and denominator. 6 goes into 6 once, 6 goes into 12 twice, so that is simply 1/2. Alright, there we are. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about what happens when those denominators are different. Okay, step 1, we are going to find what is called a common denominator. Okay, basically what that means, we can there's two ways we can find a common denominator. Either multiply the denominators together, or we can find the common multiple of the denominators. And I'll show you kind of what both of those processes look like. Again, we're going through this quickly because this should be a review. Alright, step 2, write the equivalent fractions with the common denominator. And I'll explain in the examples how we get equivalent fractions, but basically what we're going to do is we have to multiply both the numerator and the denominator to create equivalent fractions. Step 3, add or subtract fractions. Step 4, simplify if necessary. So let's go ahead and look at our first example. So 3/4 plus 2/3. Step 1 says find a common denominator. Notice the denominators are not the same. We want to make them the same. So one way we could do that is I can multiply, right? This is the first method, multiply the denominator. So I could go, okay, 12 or 3 times 4 is 12. I'm giving you all the answers. Alright, so that's going to be my common denominator. But I want to know, well, how did I get, if I start with the denominator 4, how do I get to 12? Well, I have to multiply by 3. Okay, and then step 2 tells us we have to have equivalent fractions. How do I do that? I have to multiply both the numerator and denominator. So I'm not just multiplying the denominator by 3, I also have to multiply the numerator by 3. Okay, so 3 times 3, that's 9. This is the same thing as 9/12. Okay, 4 times 3 is 12. Notice, well, it's focusing. Notice if you take this fraction and divide it by 3, we would get to where we started. Okay, so yes, these are equivalent fractions. Okay, so this is going to be 9/12. All right, and then here, how did I get from 3 to 12? Well, I have to multiply by 4. How do I get, and then again, when I multiply the denominator by, I have to do to the numerator. So this becomes the same thing as 8/12. Okay, when we add these fractions again, we're just adding the numerators. So that's 9 plus 8 in my numerator, and then 12, my denominator stays the same. Okay, so, and if you want to see kind of what that looks like broken apart, I could show you that's 9/12 plus 8/12. Again, the denominators stay the same, and then really what you're doing is adding the numerators. 9 plus 8 is 17. This becomes 17/12, or you could write this as 1 and 5/12 if you wanted to change it into a mixed number. Alright, step 2. This time I'm going to show you, well, again, we don't have a common denominator, so what can I do? I want to find a common denominator, and I could do that by multiplying the denominators. So I could go 6 times 9, what is that? Okay, well, that's 54. That's going to be my new denominator. How did I get from 6 to 54? We have to multiply by 9. And again, if I multiply by 9 in the denominator, I have to multiply by 9 in the numerator. So 5 times 9 is 45. And then I do the same thing with the other fraction. How did I get from 9 to 54? I multiply by 6. So then I have to multiply 5 by 6 as well. So that becomes 30 over 54. Again, I add the numerators, add those together, that becomes 75 over 54. Do you guys think I could reduce it? Of course I can. I can reduce it by 3. Okay, and if you're not sure, you might have to go through kind of, does 2 go into both? No. Does 3 go into both? Let me think about it. Oh, okay, it does. So you might have to just go through the list. Okay, so this becomes 25 over 18. Alright, now I'm going to show you a little shortcut. Another way we could have done this problem is we could find a common denominator, but this time using the common multiples. Okay, and I'll show you how it's a shortcut. So instead of thinking, okay, I'm just going to multiply 5 times 9 to get my common denominator, I could think of what's the smallest number, instead of multiplying 6 times 9, I could think of what is the smallest number that's a multiple of 6 and a multiple of 9. And what I mean by multiples, I mean, if I count by 6s, I would go 6, 12, 18, 24, so on. If I count by 9s, I would go 9, 18, 27, and so on. These are multiples. What is the smallest common multiple? Well, notice that would be the 18 right here. Alright, so what I could do instead is I can make their common denominator 18. And then what I would do is think about, okay, how do I get from 6 to 18? I have to multiply by 3. Of course, what I do to the denominator, I must do to my numerator to make equivalent fractions. That becomes 5/18. Okay. Then I could think about, okay, how do I get this denominator to become 18? Well, I have to multiply it by 2. That must mean I have to multiply the 5 by 2 as well. That becomes 10/18. Now we could, again, we want to keep the denominator the same. So this is the same thing as 15 plus 10 over 18. 15 plus 10, well, that's 25/18. All right. So note